What's up, Trash Talkers? Here at Veteran Trash Talk, we actually vet our sponsors. We don't just take their money and run like a butter bar lieutenant lost on the land nav course. Are you finally ready to plant your flag and claim your territory? Maybe it's time to use that VA loan to buy a home. Or hell, maybe you're looking to refinance and put some extra cash in your pocket for more questionable life decisions. Either way, the Veterans Mortgage Source, powered by Canopy Mortgage, has your six. Look, buying a home or refinancing can feel like getting overrun on a bad op. Chaotic, confusing, and full of obstacles that make no damn sense. That's where Corey and his team come in. They're like the QRF of home loans, ready to pull you out of the chaos and guide you to the best program for you. And trust me, they'll answer all your questions. Yeah, even the dumb ones. Whether you're a salty vet or fresh out of barracks still trying to figure out where your TA-50 went. Great service, solid rates, and a team that actually understands the military life. That's why all of us here at Veteran Trash Talk trust them to do right by every veteran in their family. Ready to lock it in? Give Corey a call or shoot him a text at 808-699-7874. That's 808-699-7874. Don't wait. Unless you like overpaying and getting treated like an FNG. The Veterans Mortgage Source is powered by Canopy Mortgage, LLC. All loans are subject to credit and property approval.
Hey, what's up, Trash Talkers? What's up, Gruntworks Nation? We are live for a very unique time and a very awesome show. And as the ad would say, the most important show ever. All right. And the good thing is this is a 3-part segment for July. And the second show, guess what, will be the second most important show ever. And then we'll go to the third most important show ever. However, we don't do shows in July because we started this platform while we were active duty. And this is usually the main time for PCSing and or taking holiday leaves. So we usually take July off to hang out with our families. And seeing as we have awesome partners now, we're turning July into our Partner Appreciation Month, and we're going to highlight and segment everything that's been going on. Just a quick shout out to our lower level partners. We won't really call them lower level, just ones that are just helping out where they can. We got 10th Mountain Whiskey. Big shout out to them. So go to 10thmountainwhiskey.com. And then always for your financial advising, we have Army veteran Ken. He's got his link up on the show as well. Reach out to him if you have any questions, if you're getting out, what to do with your TSP or how to maximize your returns on your investments. Awesome shout out to them. But with us today, we have the awesome Armed Forces Across America, which I've struggled for the last 6 months saying that properly. Did I get it? Did I get it right?
Arms Across America usually, but yeah, you got it right this time, brother.
Soldiers across America, wreaths across America,
police ball across America.
Baseball, something.
You can call me Care Bear in the Sky if you hire me. I really don't care.
Exactly. So they have, what they've done so far is phenomenal. The network that they're creating and expanding, and they've partnered with our biggest partner, which is Corey and the Canopy Mortgage Source. Canopy Mortgage powered by, no, I'm saying that wrong. See, I'm saying it all wrong now. Veterans Mortgage Source powered by Canopy Mortgage. All right, got it right, got it out there. And Corey's been an awesome partner with us for a year now, going on the second year. And so what we did is we connected the two together. And I think Megan probably has the answer. How many veterans have just you two teams combined helped since you started?
Well, we've sent over, I think, probably between
upwards of 15, 10 to 15.
Yeah. And then we've had a lot of people going to new builds, which leaves the hand of Corey. But but we've closed quite a few together as well.
All right. And so, hey, those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. Give us a like and a share. And then if you have any questions about refinancing, what does the market look like? Put it in the chat, home buying, VA loans, PCSing, anything. Put it in the chat right now because we have 3 experts on here that can pretty much answer any question you have. And we really want to emphasize that if you are going to buy a home, if you are going to sell a home, if you're thinking about refinancing, go with a trusted source. Now, there's thousands of realtors, and I will say this as the Big Earl, that anytime you mention you're selling a house, you got 7 people in your family that you didn't even know are realtors, and they're messaging you. But these are our very trusted source, which is Armed Forces Across America with Megan and Faceman. And then Corey, please give Corey a call about anything when it comes to your VA loan, refinancing, debt consolidation, anything. I heard this rumor, and I don't know if I should buy a home now, and we'll get into that a little later in the show. But they'll answer it for you, and it'll be for free. Okay, they will give you the best free advice. And again, you got Faceman and me on here every freaking Saturday. right? We're on here. If I doubt they will ever do you wrong, but if they do, you just got to message us and we'll square it away. But all right, I'm going to turn it over to Corey first, because the last time we were on here, we were mentioning right and wrong times to buy based on interest rates. Do we have any updates on interest rates or what's going on in the market today?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, probably the biggest headliner in the news recently was, as you've seen, the spat between Trump and Jerome Powell, and just kind of the back and forth with, I think the big headliner was the fact that Jerome Powell said we would have cut rates had it not been for the tariffs, which we think are going to cause potentially inflation. So far, the data has not supported that, which has kind of been where they're like, hey, you're not following the data. There's been, I'm sure people have seen the headlines of the back and forth of what the Fed is doing, what the president wants. And the markets have been, the 10 years down a little bit from where it was. We had a pretty good run last week, and then basically the BLS report kind of shot it back up a little bit from where, we had gotten the 10-year down to about 420. But it shot back up primarily because the Fed is likely now not going to cut rates until potentially September, where people were kind of hoping it would be July. And I'd also say too, the 10-year and the federal, short-term rates don't necessarily translate to mortgage rates. I think we saw that the first time they ever cut. They cut at 50 basis points and mortgage rates went up. That's because the Federal Reserve controls short-term interest rates. They don't control long-term interest rates. And so those two things, while they often correlate and follow eventually, it's not always immediately. So you might see Fed cuts the rates, all of a sudden people thinks their mortgage rates just went down 0.5%. It's not how it works. But basically, now that the yield curve is inverted, where the long-term, for a while there, short-term interest rates had a higher return than long-term interest rates. That's now properly inverted to where essentially the longer the maturity, the higher the yield should be on the mortgage bonds or on any bond. And so hopefully now, if you drive down the lower end of the curve, the long end of the curve, which is mortgage rates and 30-year notes, should start to follow that.
So for people who don't know anything about what that means, because I get a lot of those people where they're like, so what does that mean?
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
So what that means, I would say in the short term.
Does that mean they're staying steady, projected to go up, or projected to go down in the next 90 days?
Yeah, I would say you're going to see them be generally steady with some fluctuations depending on the data. So we've got inflation reports next week. If those stay pretty tame, I think you'll see mortgage rates trend down. If we happen to see that inflation is shot up due to, they think tariffs might cause inflation to go up, then I think you could see mortgage rates trend up a little bit. But the general forecast is rates are to stay about the same, probably trend lower towards the end of the year. Is kind of the current forecast, as they don't anticipate a lot of rate cuts. And then people are kind of just data dependent on the jobs report and the inflation reports are kind of the two drivers that make the mortgage rates fluctuate week to week, month to month. But I would say long term, the trend and projection is still rates will come down over the coming years. I think especially with the fact that the political pressure, not just from the president, but with the midterms coming, the Fed chair's up for a new position. That is projected to that President Trump is going to appoint someone that is a low rate guy. And the thought there is, over the next year, these rates should start trending back lower. But if you're in the market for a house, and I think this is kind of any time, the rates don't ever move as much as I think people kind of think they do. They trend up, they trend down, but it's within a small, it's within a range up and down. And so in a 30-day window, if you're in contract for a house, you're not going to typically see any crazy movement unless something, crazy in the news happens where it actually can, drive the rates or the market to totally shift. And it's kind of a weird time in terms of, people have fears about the job market and inflation, yet bonds are doing okay and the stock market is hitting pretty much all-time highs right now. I don't know if it's at an all-time high today, but it's
it was
close.
Yeah.
The outlook
a little bit real quick
Yeah.
too. So what I see is really three groups of people in my sphere. So we obviously see the people that are driving the train, right? So we see the Fed, the Treasury. We see all of these people that are driving the train. We see the interest rate really mainly a symptom of when I say the problem, meaning sellers aren't getting what they want for their house because it's not 2021. Buyers aren't wanting to buy because they're nervous. So the symptom of that problem would be considered interest rates. The root of that problem is going to be unemployment rates, so the jobs report and the Treasury, right? So obviously also what drives those are, politics, foreign relations, stock market, just general economy, right? But the side that I see are that people do still need to and want to make movement in their life. And I think someone on the chat posted at some point, so why do I want to see you sit in AC on a chair and complain? So this is where I am too. I'm like, we've got people dying. We've got people not able to pay their bills in some spots. We've got people dealing with a lot of pressure and a lot of despair. So when I go out and I'm like, hey, want to buy a house? Sometimes I feel really disingenuous. But the bottom line is that people are still needing to buy. People are still having babies and needing to upsize. People are still dying and homes are going into probate. People are still, getting in over their head and losing their job and they need to liquidate and downsize. There are a million reasons why we are still here doing our job and serving people. The narrative and the obstacles behind how we help people is just very different than what it was 2020 through 2023. The reasons behind the purchase and sales are different. The factors are different. And so the ways that we help are different. But we are still here. We are still helping. And it's now more than ever, because of all these complexities that are added in, that it's really important to work with somebody who has been experienced in multiple different markets and, didn't just get into the business a couple years ago when, you post one cell phone photo of a listing and overprice it 50 grand and still get 13 offers,
Yeah.
So you
Right.
need to be knowing, the dynamics behind it to truly help at the full capacity.
All right, Megan. Yeah, let's focus on armed forces across America and what it is exactly that you guys provide. We talked about it, on the show once, but there's people that are tuning into the event right now. And then as we see this and we make clips of this, what does armed forces across America do? How are you helping? How many veterans have you helped? Because it's crazy to me that we have a platform of almost close to 1 million people, which a lot of them are veterans. And I'm sure a lot of them are still not understanding what they're supposed to do. And if they are active duty and it is PCS season, what is Armed Forces Across America and why should people reach out to you?
Sure. So in terms of how many people we're helping, we have right now just over 38,000 leads that we're processing through right now. With that said, and that's across the country, the reason that we started this is because we saw from a local real estate level, when we would go to maybe sell a house, we were selling houses for a lot of active duty military and also veterans. 82% of our business is military or family of military. And we were getting story after story. We have someone that we're selling a house for right now that said the agent that sold her the house when they went to walk through, all the utilities were turned off on closing day, so they couldn't test anything. And they said, maybe we should get these turned on and wait to close until we could test everything. And the agent was like, no, just she wanted to get paid, right? So they closed and turned on utilities next day, and AC does not work at all.
Yeah.
$12,000 expense later to an active military family that is paying for, all the expenses to move, waiting on reimbursement, and now they have a $12,000 expense on top of that. We see it all of the time, and we see it a lot because they go through a lender that shall not be named. That is the largest VA lender in the country. And what that lender does is they quite literally sell your information to agents. And they do not have a qualifier of how experienced this agent has to be. So this lender that does upwards of $27 billion annually in VA sales could place you with an agent that has sold 3 total houses and does not know what they're doing. And you don't know that because you don't know how to look it up and ask the right questions, because that's not your job. There's another company out there that's really big that does the same thing. You have to pay $1,500 a month to get their leads, and you have absolutely zero experience required of you. And you market under them like you're this badass agent. And we were seeing this happen so often. I said, I want to flip the script. I'm seeing people be so poorly served that I would rather have people come to me and say, hey, I'm moving XYZ to this place. And then I actually interview agents. They do not pay me for that lead. I make sure they've done a minimum of 25 VA deals in the last 24 months and that they're up to speed. And then I place them with that agent. And then obviously our fees are at no cost to the veteran or military member or family. We take our fees out of the commission of the agent that is helping them, which is negotiated between buyer and seller.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to do it. And I know I kind of was part of this before it was a real thing. For those watching, when I retired, all right, I moved out to California. I called Megan. I said, Megan, get me a veteran realtor, right? Megan did. I called Corey. I said, Corey, I need to do something with my house in El Paso, and I got to get this house in California. So literally, I was able to get a couple emails, get a couple of maybe minor problems, and all I did was text Corey, hey, is this normal? And Corey's like, yeah. And then I texted Megan, is this commission normal? Yeah, that's normal. Okay. All right. I didn't have to worry about anything. Okay. So just, this is the point of it is don't be scared. Don't be afraid to do something. All right. Just get the information first, and you can get it for free from this team right here with Armed Forces Across America and Corey. They should be handling everybody on our platform, whether you're refinancing, buying, or selling. So Alex, I'm in the market for a house soon. Okay. So what should Alex do, Megan? What should he do?
Yeah. So
you can put our number out there. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2 things I was going to say. Obviously, chat with me and Corey both. Corey can speak to this, but one thing I love about working with Corey is that he will gather all of your information without pulling your credit. So a big thing that a lot of agents do is they say, hey, before we start house shopping, you have to get fully pre-qualified and pull your credit. And that's one of the really big hangups that buyers have. They're like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know. So they don't want to pull their credit. And then by the time they're actually ready to pull the trigger, now we're like rushing to get all the steps done. So Corey will consult and talk about your income, your debts, realistically what price point you need to be shopping in based on how much you want to put down. And then when you talk to me, I'll connect you with an agent in whatever area that you're looking in where we have an agent, and make sure that you're set up with someone that's legit, ready to go, and really talk to you about why exactly you're wanting to move there, what exactly you're wanting, and why you're wanting that. For example, some people are like, I need a minimum of 4 bedrooms. But then when we dive deep, it's like, I actually need 3 bedrooms and an office. So would a den work? Because there's probably a lot of homes for cheaper out there that are 3 and a den. So we'll really get specific with you and figure out the highest win-win.
All right. And then we were hitting about it earlier, and Megan, you kind of did what I do when I do Corey and I do our show is I say, okay, now put that in dumb grunt terms. Like, what does that mean? What are some, because we are all clickbait people on social media now. We see Donald Trump says the point should be lowered by 3 points, right? Does that mean interest rates? I think Corey was hitting about that earlier. It doesn't necessarily mean interest rates, right? When Trump's saying that. And then when you see a job report, and depending on what Facebook thinks your political views are, they're going to put the stance on that report that you see. And then someone else is opening it up and seeing a different perspective of that report based on what the algorithm says they are. What are the things you most commonly see that you just want to be like, that doesn't really matter? Like, let's talk buying a home, being scared to buy a home, or is this the time to sell my home? Like, what are some of the things that you see that shouldn't be influencing that, or they should be calling you instead?
Well, I think everything should be influenced, right? It's an influence factor. But what I always say is, what is your top priority? So, for example, if someone calls me and says, hey, I really I need to get out of the school district that I'm in and into a different school district, but I'm really nervous about interest rates. My response to them is, okay, well, interest rates aside, is it the rate number itself that you're nervous about, or is it your monthly payment and what you can get for that? So let's look at school districts that you'd be okay with, and let's see if they can actually, if we can fit one into your monthly that you're okay with. And realistically, are you more nervous about the interest rate, or are you more nervous about your kid getting bullied for another 2 years while you wait, and their mental health? Which one is more important? And let me preface this with, I am not a person that is like, oh, I'm gonna, role play objections and try to just get everybody across the closing table. Because the answer very well might be, hey, for your specific situation, it's probably best to wait a year. Like, if someone's going to the academy in El Paso, I'm probably not going to say in this market, hey, buy a house. You're going to be there a year. You're probably not going to have equity to sell in a year. So maybe don't buy if you're going to the academy. It's really going to be situation specific.
And or as a capitalist, I would say get some of your academy buddies together and use one of those VA loans where you can buy a multi-unit property.
There you go.
Yeah.
You all stay
as
in
long
it,
as you're
and
making,
and then when you graduate and they have the sergeant major chat thread and every class comes on there, hey, here's a multi-purpose home that you guys can rent. And I know that because you're right, because and also their BAH at the academy is for where they are currently stationed. So if their family doesn't come with them, they're still paying their rent back home and then going out there. But
and that's why
let me follow up with what you said with another, like, okay, I'm the grunt. And like I said, I see that, Trump's bashing the Fed and the Treasury. I'm not buying a home until Trump tells me to. Right. And or the opposite, all these crazy tariffs are going to tank our economy. I'm not buying a home. I'm terrified. Right. Does that, what do you say to that?
I say, one, the market is always cyclical. So you're going to buy, and the one thing that is guaranteed is that the market will change. So when you buy, regardless of if you bought in 2022 or yesterday, the market is going to go down. It will eventually. It's going to go up. It will eventually. It's going to flatline. It will eventually. All of those things will happen. So I really try to ask, what exactly are you afraid of? Because if you're staying in this house for 10 years, are you really afraid of the value going down when we know it's going to go back up eventually? Or what exactly are you afraid of? A lot of people have PTSD from 2008. A lot of people. They are afraid that they're going to buy a $400,000 house and it's going to be worth 50 grand. So I usually go to numbers and I say, let's flush this out. In 2007-8, I'm actually going to pull ChatGPT on this really quick. I believe the foreclosure rate was like almost 3 million were in foreclosure. Can someone Google that for me and fact check me? I believe we were at almost 3 million foreclosures in 2008. And right now, and you'll have to fact check me again, I believe we are sitting at like 20,000. That's a big gap. So when I look at specifically Arizona, and this is why it's important to have a good agent in every area, in Arizona,
3.1 million.
3.1 million we were at in 2008. And how much are we at for 2024? Because they won't have 2025 numbers yet. I believe it's at a little over 20,000. But when you look at that number, and then, for example, in Arizona, we say, we want to see on average around 20,000 active listings. And I'm not talking about land listings and manufactured home. I'm just talking about single family homes, condos, typical homes. 20,000 listings on average creates on average a balanced market in Maricopa County. It's going to be different city to city, but that's kind of the general rule of thumb. So if we are sitting closer to 50,000 houses on market, that's where we see kind of those crash style numbers, 2008 style numbers. In 2022, we had like 3,500 houses on market. It was insane. People were gouging out eyes like Black Friday sale at Walmart, punching people in to get houses. Right now, we're sitting at around, I think it's like 16,000. So we're still a seller's market in some areas of Maricopa County. So I understand the fear. I understand the uncertainty, but I also understand that the numbers are not telling me that things are going down anytime soon. At least not at 2008 level.
All right, now let's bring Corey in. So now I come to you and I say, hey, I'm PCSing to Hawaii, and we got the PCS to Paradise. And you say, all right, let me line you up with a realtor out there. And then also you're going to talk to Corey. So Corey, I know we've talked about this on the show, but we probably have new listeners. When Armed Forces Across America gives me Corey, and now I reach out to Corey, hey, I'm supposed to talk to you. What are you doing?
Yeah, so like what Megan talked about, we run pretty much all our pre-quals now on a single soft pull. So not a hard credit check. We can get a really good picture of just where you're at. And it's kind of funny. I don't know why, everybody doesn't just see where they're at. It's free, and they can run a full picture of their entire ability to buy, especially if you're kind of on the bubble and you're not really sure. See where you're at, because I think a lot of people kind of assume this just wouldn't work for their situation, or, the payment is, like Megan kind of talked about, they see the rate number, but they don't necessarily understand what that translates to as a monthly payment, especially when you're comparing to, well, what are you going to pay for rent in this market? Or what are you going to pay for if you go live on base? Because it might seem like, 6% is a big, scary number, but what does that actually mean for the payment for the house you need? And sometimes, sure, maybe it's cheaper to rent, and sometimes it's about the same. It kind of depends on the market you're in and what the rent is and the price points. So I am always a huge fan of, it costs you nothing, and there's not even a credit impact to run your full numbers and get a picture of where you stand. And it also is great for people that are like, I probably talk to at least one person a week that is like, hey, I want to buy in the next year, but my credit isn't maybe where I want it to be, or I need to put a plan together, that they at least now have an actionable plan to move forward, in a year, in 6 months, because they talked to us and they said, hey, tell me what I need to pay off. Tell me what I need to fix. Where's my current budget? This is my target budget. How can I get there? So we do that. I would say that's the biggest value we're going to bring to someone, is if you just want to know kind of where you're at and you have an idea of, this is our goal house, this is where we want to be, y'all even get a call of like, hey, what's the monthly payment on this going to be, for a house? Just so they can kind of say, hey, if this is the monthly payment for buying, what's the rent cost? We can run that stuff super quick. And like Megan said, I've reached out to Megan with people that I get that are moving. Our biggest goal too is finding an actual expert person in the region that they're moving to that's going to take care of them, that's going to do a good job of giving them good advice. There's a big thing I would say we're seeing in some markets. I'll give you an example, like Denver right now is kind of a weird market. And there's an agent that I talk to pretty frequently over there, and she's talked about people get really, some of these military people get really attracted to these new development neighborhoods. And because the market, they're having such a hard time selling them in some of these pockets of new builds, the incentives from the builder to buy the home are insane. Like it's 6, 7, 8%, like crazy credits. What she does, for example, like one thing that people don't think about, if somebody's like, I'm going to buy this new build and then I'm going to sell it in a year or 2 years. She's like, hey, you now have a home that you're competing with when you have to go sell it in a year or 2 years with the builder that's offering an 8% credit to someone new. So how are you going to be able to, unless you crazy upgrade it, you have it in super nice, why would someone buy the home next door to a new build with a massive credit when you're offering a resale property with with virtually no credit unless the price comes way down?
Or so they dump the last couple new builds that they have, which affect the price of the other ones. And we've seen that out here as well. They just want
to get out of there. And it's these are the things where, like, if you don't work with a good agent that is thought a year or two ahead, based on the neighborhood or the how far along that development is, because it's a little bit different if that's the last phase, there's the last 10 houses of the development versus this is phase 1 of 5, and your entire neighborhood is now going to be getting massive credits, and your plan is to sell in a couple years. You better be like, that is one instance where you need to make sure you're working with an agent that doesn't just throw you in here because you see the credit, you see the value. If that agent's not thinking about how are you going to sell it in 2 years and compete with the builder, essentially, maybe this isn't the neighborhood for you. And so I would say what I'm getting at is when you're in the market or you're thinking about this, the most important thing is just talk with people who actually have your best interest. One of the things I would say me and my team pride ourselves on is we probably tell a lot of people, hey, now is probably not the best time for you to buy because of their situation. Because the last thing we want is while I am truly a huge believer in buying, if you're here for 1 year in Hawaii and your plan is to sell, you're not, with the VA funding fee and everything, you're not going to be able to come out ahead. And I don't want to see people that have the intent of buying and then they get totally, financially screwed because they got bad advice. And now that's going to affect everyone they talk to in terms of don't buy a house. This is a bad idea. I got bad advice. So we're really big on, we want everyone that does go through with buying a house or refinancing to actually be successful.
And talk about your exit strategy and have that agent run comps on rents. Because if they are like, hey, rents are at least covering what your mortgage would be right now, and they're anticipated to go up, then like, hey, at least you can break even. Your entitlements are going to be tied up if you want to go buy again at your next place, but now you have an investment property. And David, didn't you have someone that you knew? I think Nick, you know him too. He bought at like every single duty station that he was at, and then when he retired,
we had several people that did that. Yeah.
We had a horrible human being of a brigade sergeant major that but however, the one thing he told me that was accurate was everywhere you go, buy a home. And I tried to do that. Some of the places like Hawaii didn't allow me to because of where we were living. And at the time of the market, where if it had a toilet on the ground, it was $800,000. So it's like, well, got that going for you. I want to get back to everything you guys just said, lump it together a little bit because we got Tony's comment up there. Vetting for vets. Love this.
FYI, Tony is
shout out to security title. Yep.
Okay. Tony is our security title agency. And he's a huge supporter of veterans.
Very big supporter. Yeah.
No, this is what it frustrates me when I look at the platform that we've built at Veteran Trash Talk and all the partners that have helped us is this is what we do for everything. We bring guests on every Saturday and we vet whether if they're a nonprofit, if you want to donate to them, here's the CEO, right? Find out what they're all about. And then we bring on for-profit companies, and then we just try to help authors, anything. We're trying to be the actual, everybody has their one-stop shop. And I think everything they're saying, like, I like how Megan and Corey both put it, talk to an expert. Well, I'm going to say it this way. Talk to them. All right. Go to Armed Forces Across America. Talk to them. Right. Find out, hey, should I be selling? Should I be buying? I'm PCSing in 6 months. Now, again, this is a squared away person is going to think 6 months ahead. But let's be honest with the active duty community. And Dave and I were both one of them. Corey was a little smarter because he went to West Point. But, we weren't always thinking 6 months ahead.
Nope. And then when do those orders come in? I mean, you're facing a lot of challenges. Yeah.
Orders come in, and let's say you were one of them, you're not the most squared away staff sergeant ever. All right. And the first sergeant will lie to you and say that you've been DA selected for drill sergeant. Right. You weren't DA selected. They went in a meeting and just picked you because they didn't want to keep you in the unit anymore. Which it is what it is. It happened. but now you're moving. Right. So you weren't thinking 6 months ahead. Give them a call. Right. And maybe this soundbite they'll hear it on the podcast later, but give Armed Forces Across America a call. If you're kind of savvy on home buying and selling, or think you are, give Corey a call first. All right. Find out if you're financially ready for that. And he might be like, do you have an agent yet? Because here's the other thing. What happens? How many veterans think they're able to buy a home not being qualified? We talked about it earlier. Like, I'm going to show up here, I'm going to buy a home. And then what?
I would say it's usually the reverse. Most people think they can't buy and realize they actually can. Is more so what we see. But I mean, a lot of it too, though, is even just prep. Like when it comes to a few specific things, like I'll give you an example with a departing residence on a VA. If you have a home that you own and you're moving to a new location, the way the VA guidelines are, if you wait 6 months, a year, that's now not considered a departing residence anymore. And you have to have a 2-year tax return history to offset that mortgage. So there's definitely a strategy of like, you want to kind of move and buy relatively quickly if you're going to do the departing residence, due to how that mortgage could impact you, because the VA has certain rules on how they count rental income. They want to see it on a tax return average. But if you're just moving, you can use the lease agreement. It's kind of the short of it. And so that's one example where it's better to talk to somebody early or get some advice, because you might set yourself up wrong when you could have easily prevented and had the proper strategy for, your buying plan when you get to your duty station.
And Corey, can you hit a little bit more on that for anybody that's watching? Because I think that's a very important aspect of it all. Using your VA loan twice, right? And it's just the entitlement aspect and what you have remaining, and that it's state dependent, right? A lot of veterans don't know that. They don't understand that. And I think that's one point that needs to be brought up every single time.
So the VA, when you've never used your VA loan, you can qualify for whatever you income credit qualify for, is the rule. Once you own a home on your VA loan, you can still use it again, but it's based on kind of two things. The county in which you're buying is what dictates the remaining entitlement. And so the example I give is, if you buy a home in Texas and you move to Hawaii, you might be able to buy. If you bought a home in Hawaii and you moved to Texas, you might not have anything left. And it's because in Hawaii, there's a larger pie with how much you can buy.
And what do you want to repeat? Someone asked to repeat that.
Yeah, I'm always highlighting the ones that,
Is that your boy?
Oh, that's Husto. Husto, just call me, brother. You know what's up.
Gusto, ask the question in case somebody else is thinking the same thing. We have to wait. It'll be like a 10-second delay.
What we're talking about is you can use your VA loan more than once, even if you have an active VA loan. And the amount in which you can buy, the easy answer, it's not the exact formula, but it's the simple way, is whatever you purchased your home for minus whatever the county loan limit is in the new place you want to buy. That's approximately how much you have left without needing a down payment. And people don't know you can actually go over that amount. You just have to bring 25% down of the gap. So if your remaining entitlement was $400,000 and you wanted to buy a $500,000 house, you went over your remaining entitlement by $100,000. So you have to bring 25% or $25,000 down on that last $100,000, and you can still use your VA loan again.
Gotcha.
There you go, Gusto.
We do have to take Gusto's comment with a grain of salt because he has K-Town, and we all know that from the stripper at Mickey's that K-Town doesn't exist. So
hey, Corey, a big question that we get asked a lot is, can somebody that is not a veteran and not in the military go on a loan with a veteran, on a VA loan with a veteran if they're not married? So like, can a parent who's not a veteran co-sign? Can a girlfriend or boyfriend go on?
So
if they're military?
You can. The downside is you have to bring, there's a formula for it, but typically it's going to be 12.5% of a down payment. So essentially the VA covers the veteran for 25% loss. They guarantee the loan for 25%. So if you bring a non-veteran as a cosigner, the VA only covers the half of the veteran. So that pie is divided by the number of non-veterans. So if it's, say, a girlfriend and a veteran, and they want to buy a house together, they're not married, fiance, whatever it may be, they've got to bring a 12.5% down payment to purchase the home. So in those situations, sometimes it's just better for them to go with a different program because there's 3, 5, 10% down plans they could do if the down payment is their limiting factor. Mm-hmm. And so, we kind of weigh that with, hey, a VA loan, you're going to get a better rate. You're going to be able to qualify for more. But a conventional loan, you might be able to just put 3 or 5% down, and the rate's going to be a little higher. You're going to have some PMI, but what's better for your situation kind of depends. And we have one of those. We actually just had one of those. And ironically enough, the first lender they talked to, it was a mom, dad, and a son. So the mom and dad are married. Dad's a veteran. They want to have their son help them qualify for. The first lender they talked to said they couldn't do a VA loan because they're not all veterans and the son's not a veteran. And I was like, no, they were planning to bring they were selling another home and they were bringing like 40% down. And I said, you can absolutely have everyone on the VA loan in this way. So it's possible, just it's going to trigger a down payment.
So David tried to pull a real army move when we were buying our house and tried to get me to the courthouse to marry him so I could get on the loan without.
Hell yeah. Get that BH.
I said, no, we're waiting to do it the right way. But what we did, which is another option, is if the veteran can approve by themselves, to just go on the loan by themselves. And then we added me to the title. I just wasn't on the loan.
Yeah, and a lot of times
I used my VA loan twice in that aspect because we still had the house in North Carolina as well. So yeah.
And a lot of times what we'll do in some of those cases is because the VA loan you can stretch it so far. That's a situation where I might be trying to stretch this veteran to their tippy top max qualification. But we know it's because they have other income that's going to be paying for the mortgage. It's family, fiance, whatever it may be, roommate. And so we squeeze them in by themselves. And then obviously they're going to be a lot more comfortable than what's on paper because there's income there that we just can't use.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect. Well, hey, we're gonna wrap things up because we have a show next week. And again, that was those are things they're real things that happen in the veteran mind, in the active duty mind. And that's why we're just saying we are trying to make it as simple as possible for you guys to make the right decision. And like I said, I always try to bring the show back to these two teams that are now one and almost combined with Armed Forces Across America and Veterans Mortgage Source powered by Canopy Mortgage. Just call them. All right, you can scan the QR code on there, and or you can just wait till after the show and get the websites, or go on VeteranTrashTalk.com and get on the website. I don't know. I think we have. Go on our website. I think Armed Forces Across America.
I don't think we did yet. I don't think we did, but we can get that done.
If they're not, we have to get we have to get Nick to do that, and he will. Or no, we'll get Perry to do that, and he'll do that, no problem. But other than that, we're gonna focus the show next week more on the home buying selling side. So what are we going to talk about next week? What are some of the things we might want to hit?
We can hit up a lot of seller delusion, maybe, because a lot of sellers are still living in 2021 and wanting to PCS in 3 months, but wanting to over their price and test the market. So we can hit on a lot of that. And then we can also hit on a lot of the benefits that buyers have right now that they're not going to have when rates drop. They can get we're talking like 20 to 30,000 in credits so that they can buy a house for free, versus that's not really always possible when rates drop.
Very nice, very nice. And I've always, scan that QR code down there and give Corey a call to discuss your financial situation. It's free, like he said a bunch of times on the show. It's free to do it on your own. But, if you just want to feel comfortable like I did, I text Corey probably once every 2 months, yo, what are we doing? Right. And he's like, nope, not yet. Or, give it time. And I trust him. So he's controlling big part of my finances. And I really appreciate him doing that. And then again, the Armed Forces Across America team, before they were Armed Forces Across America, helped me out a bunch, getting me a great realtor where I moved. So again, reach out to them. And then, hey, we're moving our fight show to Saturday mornings. And we picked up another partner. Product placement with Ariel Resupply Coffee. So we're going to get all hopped up on caffeine Saturday mornings and do our UFC fight shows then. So really happy to help old Michael Klemler out and his business with Ariel Resupply Coffee. So again, reach out to Armed Forces Across America and then Veterans Mortgage Source powered by Canopy Mortgage and Corey. Go to our website, VeteranTrashTalk.com. And we have Corey's information on there, and we will get Armed Forces Across America up there as soon as we can. I mean, it took us like 6 months to just follow each other on social media, Dave, but we won't bring that up. I just had to go and I'm like, why are we not following them? Click, right? So it's pretty easy. All right, guys, we'll see you next week where we're going to talk about don't be a moron when you're trying to sell your house.